The year was 1415, and an African empire was about to change the world. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about African history. Not because it's hidden or secret, but because for centuries, the world simply wasn't listening. Imagine standing on the docks of Calicut in India. It's 1498. Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama has just arrived, claiming to be the first European to reach India by sea. But here's what they don't tell you. Chinese Admiral Zheng He had already sailed there. Zheng He, an African-descended Muslim commander who led massive treasure fleets across the Indian Ocean decades earlier. Between 1405 and 1433, he commanded expeditions that were exponentially larger than anything Europe would accomplish for another century. His ships were enormous. Some historians estimate they were over 400 feet long. European vessels? They were half that size. Yet somehow this man's incredible achievements got erased from Western history books. Why? That's the test we're all failing. Let's go back further. The year is 1324. A man named Mansa Musa is preparing to leave his home in Mali. This was no ordinary journey. It was a pilgrimage to Mecca, and it would become the most legendary voyage in African history. Mansa Musa didn't travel light. He brought with him a caravan of 60,000 people, 80 camels carrying over 300 pounds of gold each, and an entourage so spectacular that people across Africa and the Middle East were still talking about it for generations. When he passed through Egypt, he spent so much gold that he actually crashed the local economy. Can you imagine? One man's generosity destabilized regional markets. But you probably never learned about him in school. This is the African history test, and we need to ask ourselves, why do we know more about European explorers than African kings? Why do we know more about European trade routes than African empires that controlled the wealthiest networks on Earth? Consider the kingdom of Axum. In 100 AD, while Rome was at its height, Axum was thriving in what is now Ethiopia. It was one of the four great superpowers of the ancient world, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. Axum minted its own currency. It had a written language called Gez that still exists today. It controlled the Red Sea trade routes, yet most people couldn't find it on a map. Fast forward to the 1600s and 1700s. The Asante Confederacy in West Africa was becoming a political and military powerhouse. Under leadership like Osei Tutu and Kwame Asante, the Asante created a sophisticated government system, a standing army, and a wealthy kingdom built on trade and agriculture. They were innovators. They were organized. They were powerful. And when European traders arrived demanding the slave trade, the Asante understood exactly what they were doing. For nearly a century, they largely resisted participating. They knew the cost. Here's what the test really is. It's whether we can look at history honestly. It's whether we can acknowledge that Africa produced kingdoms and empires, philosophers and generals, traders and innovators long before European contact. It's whether we can accept that African history isn't something that started when Europeans arrived. It's whether we can finally tell the complete story. The problem isn't that these stories don't exist. They do. The Songhai Empire, the Great Zimbabwe, the Kingdom of Congo, the Mali Empire, the Ethiopian highlands where Lalibela carved churches out of solid rock in the 1100s. These places were real. These people were real. Their achievements were monumental. We're living in the African history test right now. Every time we choose to learn more about African civilizations, we pass it. Every time we question why these stories were excluded from mainstream education, we pass it. Every time we share what we've learned with someone else, we're helping others pass it too. The real question isn't whether African history is important. It always has been. The question is whether we're finally ready to know it. Watch more at Pa.